All right. So, as I introduced myself earlier, I'm Charlie Arms, Executive Director of Brendan Sailing, and I started here in 2017 and inherited a program with a legacy of over 3 decades. But there was not about 20 years ago, Brendan did a Brendan in a box. So they captured all the things that they were doing and they put it in a binder and told you how to do it in your neighborhood. And I remember getting it when I worked at Cal Maritime. I remember getting Brendan in a box, but there hadn't been a lot done in the space academically or research-wise since then. So one of the things I was tasked with was, making this a national footprint. And so we talked about reviving Brendan in a box and why didn't it work and what could we do differently. And some of our initial strategic planning was to revamp Brendan in a box. And then looking at it closer, we realized the reason Brendan works so well is you heard from our founder, Jim Muldoon earlier, because of his connections and network. We were here at St. Mary's College of Maryland, being able to use the James P. Muldoon River Center at no cost to us. And in Annapolis, we run our program off of Bemby Beach. We bought our boats through grants and through donations, but we don't pay rent at the Annapolis Sailing School. So it's really hard to duplicate that in other areas. If you don't have an angel donor or this network, you're never going to be able to capture what we have at Brendan Sailing that's so special. But what we can share is our approach to how we teach and why that works in other places. And whether it be down in Charleston, they did Cool Camp, where we went down and did a Brendan approach training, and then they did a 1-week camp for youth on the autism spectrum. And out of that grew Spectrum Sailing. Scott Herman is now doing that around the nation, and we can go. Danielle and I went to Chicago and trained their instructors in the Brendan approach so that they can work in a camp that's or a week-long camp that's for kids with autism. Or we can just go to a sailing program, like we've gone to the Cooper River Sailing School up in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. It's right on the border. I can't remember which side the club is on. And just trained their sailing instructors for the summer in the Brendan approach, because the great thing about the Brendan approach is it works for typical kids. So it's just a great learning process. So this is a quick explanation of what that training exists. And we'll finish with a demonstration with some of our campers on how we do things a little bit differently than maybe a yacht club program or a typical community sailing program would do. So I'm going to talk about what Brendan does, why it works. I'm going to talk a little bit about motivation and self-regulation. It's already been touched on a little bit in the 2 previous speakers. We're going to talk about managing learning diversity and common behaviors that we're going to see at in a sailing program. We're going to talk about how we've changed specific sailing topics and what we kind of do to tweak them to use the Brendan approach. And then we're going to have our demonstration. So what we do, this has evolved. Judy is here. Do we remember what years Judy led the programs? It was the 80s, wasn't it? Yeah, or maybe the 90s. So what we've been around a long time. We definitely do a non-competitive environment. So we might do like a fun race or a fun activity, but we're trying not to pick teams. We're trying not to pit student against student to see who's the best at this. We do want to challenge them, but we don't want to. They have enough struggle and unsuccessful events in their lives that we don't want to have a summer camp where they have more of those. So we really are trying to emphasize building successes throughout our program. And that's why our tagline is realizing success. I mean, that's what we're really trying to do with our kids. So why Brendan Sailing works. When we're hiring staff and when we're training our staff, we're not looking for someone who's an Olympic level sailor, or even someone who's a hotshot racer from the local club, or even someone who's a pretty good, just regular old Joe sailing teacher, but doesn't have a lot of patience. Right now, if you ask me what's the biggest thing I want my instructors is patience. You have to be willing to struggle with the camper that is struggling and not get impatient and exasperated. Because as soon as they see that on your face, it's going to multiply and stress them out even more. And well, I know Dr. Cogburn is a sailor, and there's some other sailors in the room, but sailing is a sport that is, it's not like basketball where there's a court and it's the same court every time you walk on it. And it might be a little cooler in the gym that day, but it's not raining. And the basketball at the end of the court stays where it is. And you always know where the basketball, you know how to walk to the basket and make a basket. Sailing is on a court that's moving around, it's moving up and down, and the basketball at the end of the thing moves around as you're trying to get to it. So it's very challenging. And so what are we doing putting kids that struggle with challenges out on the race course? Well, it's kind of like in Danielle's presentation, or no, in Monica's, when she was her son that looked at the bridge and saw there was something not right there. There's something about being on the water and the wind and that type of thing that a lot of kids either on the spectrum or with learning differences really connect with. And so and some don't, some of our kids, this isn't for me. So those are the kids that we have to make, we want to have a good time and have success for them. But there's something about sailing that has really clicked, and we're diving into that. We do embrace the experiential learning mode, so we want them to discover. One of our boards said, well, can you just use this discover method because it so connects with this population? To a point we can lay out the pieces of rigging, and we can ask when they say, how does this work? We go, well, where on the sail do you think it goes onto the mast? And we can look at them doing that. How do I pull? Well, which rope goes to the top of the mast? And let's look for it. But once we're on the water, there's not a lot of time to go, you just figure out what's going to be attack and how you feel about that, because they're spinning around. So we do embrace the model when we can. We want the students to always attempt every skill. So even the kid who's the most timid of all, we want them to try driving the boat. And then if that's really not their thing, we can have them crew. So but we do want to push to that. And I'll talk a little bit about why we're pushing and how much challenge we have. Our primary objective, like I said, is personal growth. And that is different for every single camper. We want to take the time to find out what they're interested in, not just what their parents hope they'd achieve, where are they and where they're at, and meeting them there. And we want to be supportive as a culture. So we don't want that, I'm faster than you type thing. We want to have, everyone got around the course today. Everyone put their boat away. So we want to celebrate our group succeeding as a group. If we do need to kind of break into groups, we might do team challenges or relays where there's 5 or 6 kids on a team. And so there isn't that one singled out, I wasn't successful. We didn't win because of me. So we've also heard a little bit about understanding learning differences already today, but I want to talk about it sort of in our sailing setting. And we love this quote: you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view. So how we have looked at learning disability, we understand that's a diagnostic legal term that identifies conditions encompassing the difficulties, much what we've heard earlier today. And we have used learning differences because it's not diagnostic, but we want it to be inclusive of all of the diagnosed learning disabilities, all like dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. We want it to be the attention deficit disorders, kids on the autism spectrum, and any of the others. I've been here 5 coming on 6 years. I didn't come from this background, so I've been learning, and when I see an application come in for camp, learning auditory processing disorder, okay, that's new to me. What do I need to go do to find out? And I talk to that mom. What do we need to do? Well, that kid needs a checklist, and this is Colin. And his mom really wanted him to be a helper. He'd been in camp a few years and he was getting older. What can he do? So he became our beach master. And so I had a checklist for him every day: wash the boats down, put the rudders away. And so he needed that written checklist. Our other kids would see that checklist and it would be on the ground and forgotten in a minute. So that wouldn't work for them. So we're really making sure that we know what the kids we have in camps, learning difference or diversity or whatever we're going to end up calling it after this session, and work with them specifically. So some of the things we see, struggling with written information. So depending on the child, we don't spend a lot of time with written things. We don't have a textbook for them. Following directions. So we can't say, okay, to rig your boat, here's the 10 steps, and then expect them to remember all 10 steps to following directions. Or even go get your sail and rig your boat. I mean, that's not going to work. So we're going to have to break that. Physical coordination. So sailing is also a little bit of a ballet. And we have a kid in our class now who's probably 6'2", maybe 180. He's a big kid. And we're trying to teach him to step across the boat, holding a stick in his hand, ducking below another thing that could hit him, trade hands behind his back, and then sit on the other side. And that's a lot of coordination for anybody. But some of these kids that have physical coordination issues, it's really tricky. And so trying to figure out how we can get them to do that. In a typical camp, the tacking backwards is like drilled into their head. You can never tack backwards. We've tried really hard to get the kids to go through the wind looking forward, but if the only way our kid can do it is tacking backwards, then that's a success. That's not this kid, we can't get them to tack forward. So we make exceptions because we want success for them. Changing from one activity to the next. So we'll do our chalk talk, and then we're going to do a manipulative, and then we're going to do a land drill. So there's a lot of transitioning. Then we go sail, then we have rigging, and then we go sailing, and then we come in from sailing and de-rigging. So there's all these different things we're doing. So we need to manage those transitions and explain what's happening next ahead of time. Sometimes they struggle with the social interaction. The biggest thing Danny and I have heard all day yesterday was, can I pick my partner? Can I pick my partner? Because we have 2 kids in a boat. And we said, no, why not? Well, what would happen if no one picked you? Well, I'm going to do it. Yeah, but what if you're the kid that doesn't get picked? And I think he finally understood, okay, I get it. You're popular. Everyone's going to pick you. But what about that? And so I think he finally realized. And I said, guess what? You're going to be able to pick. You're going to be able to sail with everyone you want to sail with. This week, you will be able to sail with everyone because everybody sails with you. So we give them what they want. They just don't realize that everyone gets what they want because they just have to take turns. So that social interaction is something that might be a struggle that we have to consider. Other things we deal with, and this is typical, the lack of empathy. So we have those be coachable moments when someone says something that could be hurtful, but they don't mean it as hurtful at all. Like, you called me the wrong name. Yes, I did. I'm really sorry. I called you Connor. I get it, and just move on. They're not, and I have to say that with my new counselors too. Some of my junior instructors might be offended because the kids are blunt and to the point. And it's like, you can't take it personally. You just understand if it was a hurtful thing, then you might help them rephrase it. But if it was just accurate and their opinion, you got to go with it. High levels of anxiety. So I already sort of described that crazy basketball court thing, what it might be like. So if they're already an anxious person, we need to work with them and try to hear their anxieties and not raise their level of anxiety. We have motivation issues and then lack of self-regulation. So motivation and regulation. So we all know that extrinsic motivation is a great motivator to some point. So what we do in our program is we have a lot of positive reinforcement. And when you're an average sailing instructor, everybody does a lot of positive reinforcement initially. That's how we, the psychology of learning, that's how we get the kids to do what we want them to do. For us, in typical kids, if we do too much positive reinforcement, then the value of it kind of gets diminished and the kids don't really need it. for our kids, we keep using a lot of positive reinforcement throughout. We don't really wean off intermittently as we might with a typical group. And then we have a sailor of the day. So we're acknowledging good behavior in front of everybody that everyone can see, so that there's something to strive for. And it is amazing. You can see kids as we're starting to de-rig. Is there anything else I can help with? Can I do that? Is there another mask? Because they're working for that sailor of the day. They might have been a total disaster in the morning, but it's coming up on sailor of the day time. And we actually split our sailor of the day into a morning sailor of the day and an afternoon sailor of the day, because we saw that reward is a great motivator. But what we really want is our kids to become intrinsically motivated. And so what I've learned after taking this position and really looking at this is we need autonomy. So we have kids that are going to go sail their own boat. You can't get much more autonomous than that. But mastery, we have kids that they are never going to be able to sail their own boat. So, okay, so we want to motivate them, but if we throw this in a single-handed boat, they're just going to fail. So that's not going to help them they're just going to go, I don't want to do this anymore. And there's got to be purpose to it. So when we're giving them rules, or we're giving them ways to do things, we really want to emphasize why it's important. The figure 8 knot, the first knot every sailor learns to tie. Why do we need to tie this? Well, because we tie it at the end of every rope on the boat so that we don't lose it. Otherwise, you might lose it. It's a stopper knot. It stops it from getting lost. Okay, well, this is a knot, and there's a reason I need to learn to tie it. And so that gives them the purpose of it. So why do we have to roll the sails? So why can't we just shove them in a box and put them away? And so we show them a sail that has been crumpled up and diminished because it wasn't put away correctly, and then we show them a new crispy sail. So it motivates them. Oh, okay. And we had 1 or 2 crispy sails, and we had the old sails. Well, if you roll your sail up right, you're more likely to get the crispy sails to sail. So there was that. Okay, so I see the purpose to this task that seems like pain in my neck. I want to get involved in it. We want to build success, though, so we need to challenge them. This isn't just going for a sailboat ride. And then we want to have achievement. So that's what we're building into our program, is to have the challenge and the achievement. Okay, so this is the trick. One of the biggest trick here is to pronounce the name of the guy who did the research. And so I've got my cheat sheet here, and it is Csikszentmihalyi. Mr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi came up with this theory of flow. And so as you can see from the diagram, the middle part there is optimal flow. In sailing, we talk about sailing in the groove, and that's when you've got your sails trimmed exactly right based on the point of the angle of approach, and you're just in the groove. So this optimal flow part of it and being in the groove is something that can be in any sport or any activity. If there's too much, so the difficulty on the left, if it's too easy, the kids are going to get bored, or you get bored at it and you don't want to do it anymore. If it's too difficult, then it's the stress. There's that level of stress that you get when it's challenging and you're accomplishing it. It's excitement, and it's releasing endorphins, and things are good. But if it's too hard, then it topples over into this is too complicated. If the stress is too hard, then the kids in our situation, the self-regulation goes haywire, and the kids just can't go, okay, this is too difficult, I need to ask for help, or I need to slow down, or I need to stop turning in circles. So the trick is figuring that out and reaching optimal flow. And over time, we don't just, as you acquire better skills and become better, then your challenge can go up, your level of difficulty can go up. The other thing that we have as a motivation blocker is stereotype threat. So the best example of this is girls are bad at math. And so one of the studies I was looking at was testing girls at math. And you know what? They were bad at math because they were told girls are bad at math. So what they did was they went in, and with a group of the students, they went in and told them girls are good at math. You guys are exceptionally, this group, we know that we, by whatever things they did, you're going to be really good at this. And by doing this intervention in advance of the girls taking the math test and told you're going to be really good at math, the girls did better on the test. So what we need to do and tell our kids is you're going to be really good at this. Kids with dyslexia are exceptionally good sailors. Kids on the spectrum do well on the water. So we want to make the kids in our program know that they are going to be great at this. And then we need to make sure that they are great at this, right? So we need to make sure that the challenge we give them is attainable. But that's one of the other motivation blockers that we find, kids with learning disabilities, they're not any good at stuff. They struggle in school. They've got these constant stereotypes that are coming down on them. But by intervening to go against that stereotype threat, we can have better motivation with the kids. All right, self-regulation. So I can tell you, I've been dealing with this for 4 days. We have a new group of kids. We are with them 24/7 for the next 9 days, and we can see it happening in lots of different ways, whether it's just horsing around back at the dorms, outside, or whether it's having a complete meltdown on the sailboat. The kids, even typical kids might struggle with self-regulation because it's something that youth are learning. A great example of this, I might be preaching to the choir here, but I love this great example. You're at the grocery store, maybe in a little bit of a hurry. There's someone in front of you with 18 items in the 12-item line, and the checker's going really slow and having to call back and look up the produce code. And behind you, there's a woman whose kid is in their cart acting out, and maybe she's bumping you with her cart. And what you really want to do is say, you've got too many things on, you shouldn't even be in this line. Control your kid. But you're self-regulated. You go through the process. If that really happens, what would happen if I really spoke out right now and said what I'm feeling and thinking? Bad things would happen. So these kids with the self-regulation, they're going to blurt out stuff, or they're going to have emotions that they're not able to control yet. And so for us as counselors and when you're teaching these kids, especially in an outdoor environment, you need to appreciate they do not have the regulation to stop that. You make it a coaching, teachable moment. Okay, I understand, Joe, that you're really frustrated and that Billy's bothering you. Let's work to make this not become a huge volcano eruption. All right, so we really teach our instructors to respect our emotions, respect emotions. That's part of the Brennan approach that's really, really important. Fear and anxiety that we know on the water, and we teach every sailing instructor that there's avoidance behavior. If it's too fearful, then the kids are not going to want to sail. So the last thing we want to have happen is to create lifelong sail haters, right? We might not be creating lifelong sailors or people that love sailing, but we definitely don't want to end up with people that hate sailing, that are going to never try it again. So we want to work with them to have a positive experience. We have people that are afraid in the bay water that there's sharks and there are jellyfish. That's a real thing, or sea monsters. We need to take that seriously. We need to try to convince them that there aren't sea monsters. We need to try and work to bring down the anxiety level and really respect it. Their perception is their reality. If they're afraid the boat's going to flip as soon as it tips a little bit, like 5 degrees, that's their reality. They're thinking complete capsize every time the boat heels. One way we deal with that is we do in the swimming pool where there are no jellyfish or sharks or sea monsters, we tip, and they see how hard it is to tip the boat over. So we actually go up into the pool here on campus and we do that capsize trip. So they can really get a sense. So we try to respect their emotions, but also with the fears and anxieties, try and work with a way to break that anxiety down. We appreciate there's going to be impulse control issues. If it's not a huge safety factor, then we try to calmly and gently work with it. But there are times where it is a safety factor and we have to say, Joanne, move your hand, because she's got her hand between the dock and the boat. And then we talk later about, okay, why do you think I yelled at you just then? Why did I raise my voice? What was going on there? And really talk through it. But just like we don't have time to have a conversation about your hand that might not be the best place for your hand. Safety first, but then talk it through. Self-esteem, if we send them out and it's a particularly rough day or they've capsized, we need to recognize that and really talk about it in our debrief. Here's the America's Cup boats capsizing, right? Everybody does it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. What could we do differently so we don't capsize? Some of the kids love capsizing, but the kid that is fearful of it, we need to really work through it. Like I said, positive reinforcement all the time. We want to make sure we do that. And then for us, we want to make sure we're informing the parents about the good things that happen that day so they can continue the positive reinforcement at home. And we also want to talk about the bad things that happen that day. So if it comes up, we had a kid on the spectrum and he said, he's one of my junior instructors, Kyle just slapped me. And I look over and I'm like, what happened? And Kyle had touched his arm to try and get his attention. And Colin, he experienced that as a slap. So we talked about it and we made sure Colin knew that wasn't a slap and that's touching. And we understand you don't like to be touched, so we won't do that anymore. And then when Colin's parents came, we need to make sure we said there was an issue and so they understood. They don't hear at the dinner table, well, yeah, but when the counselor slapped me, that was really scary, or that I didn't like that. So we did make sure that we are communicating with the parents so that what happens in camp, they really know what the picture is. Okay. So we used to say that what we do to accommodate learning diversity, and I changed that. We are embracing learning diversity. We're embracing that all the kids are different and they all have their different ways of doing things. Everything okay still? And doing things and making that part of what makes the culture of Brendan so great. So we embrace learning diversity. This is a great slide and I show it to my beginning instructors because there are times where this kid just isn't getting it. And so this slide says, how do you know I have a learning disability? Maybe you have a teaching disability. Because if the goal of teaching is learning, right? And so if the kid, you might execute your lesson plan and have what you think is a fantastic chalk talk and you did a great land drill. But if the kids aren't learning, then you need to change it up. All right, so how we manage some of the common behaviors that we deal with. The transitioning I talked about, some of the things we let them know what's next. We let them know what the plan of the day is going to be, and we do it with graphics and words. One of the things Danny had talked to us about is a visual schedule, and a great example of that is during COVID, all the pictures of how to wash your hands. Put the soap, put water, put soap. Sing happy birthday, all of those graphic things on how to wash your hands, that's a visual schedule. So we try to do that with our camp. We're going to have a chalk talk, and then we're going to have we're going to be on the water, and we try to do that with graphics and words, so the kids know what the plan of the day is going to be. Also, because we're sailing, we have to adapt to what Mother Nature sends us. There's times that we're going to have to change that. So if we think that the weather might be affecting us, we let them know ahead of time. Look, guys, there might be plan A, plan B, plan C today based on what the weather's doing. So we're going to be prepared for that. We do want to use consistent changes, like, okay, now's the change time. Now we're all going to do this. We want to be consistent with how we let them know that it's time to change. And we want to make sure that we're not rushing through, okay, everyone now, let's get our sunscreen on. And so we're building in time to make sure everyone gets through the transition. Wandering. So some of the kids on the spectrum, wandering is an issue. And so what's it called? Elopement? Is that the technical term? Elopement? What? And so if we have a wanderer, we've talked to the parents about it, or they've brought it to our attention. So we'll assign a junior counselor, or we'll even assign a counselor to that kid. So if he needs to go to use the restroom or he's getting going down, there's just someone nearby that their job is to keep an eye on that child so that we don't have them wandering away where we're in a missing kid situation. The inappropriate self-expression. So we talk about it ahead of time. So we talk about no swear words. We talk about what is acceptable and what the consequences are. And then we try to, if it's something that blurts out, we go, remember words, language. And so, because if we don't address it, then other kids are going to go, oh, we're allowed to say those words. So we don't want to reprimand in public, but we want to also nip it in the bud. If it's a case of, I'm frustrated, and okay, talk to me, tell me what's bothering you, why are you frustrated, how did you get to this level, what can we do next time? If you don't want to sail with someone, we talk about, there's always someone else to sail with, but if we've got an oil and water situation, maybe we do need to move the pairings around. Danny taught me about the choiceless choice. So, okay, well, you can say, I want to sail with Joanne, I only want to sail with Joanne. Well, Joanne's already sailing with someone, so you can sail with Beth or Derek. Do you want to sail with Derek or Beth? I want to sail with Joanne. Yep, I understand that. But today you get to choose. You get to choose between Beth or Derek. And then finally the kids, they come around. They're like, okay, I want to sail with Beth. So so we do that. What else? The redirection, typical term, or keep them busy. If we've got an ADHD kid that just can't sit still, there's times where the trick is don't sit them together. So we need to spread them out a little bit and then keep them busy. Make it okay if they need to stand up in the back row and realize, I'm not going to, this is longer than I've talked all week in one sitting. I'm never going to talk this long to the kids without switching and changing and doing something else. Okay, so some quick, how am I doing on time? I wrote everyone's time down when they started and I didn't do mine very well. I know my kids are anxious to go. So these are sort of a couple of tricks that we've done. How many of you are sailors? Okay, so a couple of, I'll brush through these because we got some non-sailors and we're going to talk about capsize here. So capsize is when a boat tips over, and we have to do that in every class because boats tip over. So we want to make sure the kids know how to put it back upright. So in a standard class, traditional, you would do a chalk talk. And you would draw on the whiteboard and try to draw a boat tipping over and a boat coming up. You might have a model boat here that you say, this is the boat tipping over, this is the boat coming up. And then you go out and you do it. So what we want to do in our alternative is we're going to have a model boat. We're not going to demonstrate the boat tipping over and coming up. We're going to have the kids tip the boat over and bring it back up. So they're using, it's the manipulatives that you use to teach math. We're using those manipulatives to get the concept of boat tipping over. Okay, it's like this now, and now it's coming back upright. And here's where I need to be on the boat. So we're taking the concept we've been talking about and actually showing it in live. We could show a video of capsize recovery, but this is the tactile, kinesthetic. They're the ones maneuvering the boat. We also can tip a boat over on shore. So then it's the actual equipment. We can show the boat tipping over and how it's a slow process of the boat tipping over. And then we can have them put their hands on the center board or the dagger board that they're going to go out and push. And then we go do it in the water. So we're giving them the tactical, kinesthetic process in multiple ways. Aids to navigation, usually we would show a paper chart, which a chart is a map on the water. And we would talk about red right returning, keep the red buoys on your right side returning from sea. What we do is and I'll show you in the next slide, we create hazards. So the kids have a table, they create hazards, and then they use red and green objects to create a safe channel to get through the hazards. So not only are they building the channel and driving through it, but they're also getting to create these hazards. Another thing we do is so now this is hands-on tabletop. Then we go out in the field and we get cans of 7-Up, which are really helpful because the odd numbered buoys, as you're going, are called can buoys. They're green and they have odd numbers on them. So cans of 7-Up, odd number, green, and they're can buoys. And then we get Coke bottles because Coke bottles are red and the red buoys are right, the red right returning, the red buoys are right, and they're shaped pointy like a bottle. So we use those techniques to really bring home what we're teaching that could be really dry and boring and hard for them to grasp. Points of sail, this is a term referring to where your boat is in compared to where the wind's coming from. So in a traditional classroom, we would draw what we call the wind pizza and name each point of sail and draw the boat up there. But what we're going to do is we're going to use a poster and use model boats to show where the boat would be in comparison to the wind. And we also have done this on a big scale. We've got a 12 by 12 foot tarp that pretty much looks like the poster. So now the kids are out here like this on this poster, and we give them pool noodles, and then they go and lay the sail down where it's supposed to be, which side and how far out, so that, again, they're really grasping and using kinesthetic, moving their bodies to connect to the concept. So here's a picture of the technique we use for the hazards. So you can see these are all hazards that the kids have created. And then in this situation, we use red and green apples. So this kid is actually going out to sea because the red buoys, the red apples are on the left, and he's moving his boat through the channel that the kids have made. And then it all gets messed up, and the next kid builds his channel and somebody else goes through. So it's a real interactive way for them to build the concept of the channel markers. When they're out there, they're going to see a red channel marker. Think red apple. The red apple's on the right side of the boat as we're returning from sea. So it really drives it home in a fun way. And then you can eat the apples afterwards. So it's snack of the day as well. I'm just going to rush through some of these other models. So what we do in our Brendan approach training is we come up with all of these ideas, and then we get ideas from the participants as well. And then we come with a box of stuff, like your craft supplies, and we say, okay, here you go. Brendan approach trainer or trainees, all certified instructors already. Here's a sailing topic, build me a manipulative. Come up with something that we can use or you can use in your program to teach this topic. And so it's a really cool kind of think, peer, share activity that we do in our training. And I just decided in building for this, we're going to do that at camp. Why aren't we having our kids build this stuff? So we're going to have each kid, we're going to give them, a popsicle sticks and a piece of paper and a tissue and an apple, and we're going to go, all right, here, you teach this and you create your own manipulative. So that might be one of our evening activities. Okay, so Danielle, if you could go get them and tell them we're going to be ready for them now.
Yes.
All right, so pulling it all together with the Brendan approach, key things, we want to find out about each student. We want to talk, our application actually says, what is your learning difference diagnosis? But we want to talk to them ahead of time, and we want to share that with all the other instructors. So we have a little powwow, we've got a spreadsheet. Here are the kids in our program. Here is what their learning differences are. And any parents often have hints on how things work with their kid. Like one of our kids with ADHD, the parent came and said, what you really need to do is just tap him on the shoulder and then talk to him to get his attention, right? We've got the kid over here that you can't tap on the shoulder, and then this kid you do tap. So the instructors need to remember that kids learn differently, kids also want to be treated differently, so we need to keep that in mind. We want to safety first, so that's key. So daily reminders in a friendly way, trying to keep those safety habits, make it part of their day, and use consistent terms. Keeping a lookout, so we do a check for understanding. Any good instructor will make sure, but also engagement. So if you've got a kid who might be kind of looking at you but hasn't really talked in a while, so maybe, okay, Beth, what do you think about this? Or call on, if she hasn't answered the question, Beth, do you know the answer to this question? So we're really engaging, not just trying to do a quiz after. We want to use small groups. So we have the kids that maybe are a little bit, have more anxiety. We maybe want to pair them up with a more experienced kid, or we want to pair them up with an instructor. So we have really thoughtful ways. We don't pair our group by the 11 and 12-year-olds are all together. We really, level of anxiety, level of challenge, fearlessness on the water. We really want to mix it up so that we've got good small groups and they will work well together. If something's not working, change it. So U.S. Sailings is monitor and adjust. That's definitely true for Brennan Sailing. If you're doing a land drill or you're doing one of these manipulatives and it's just not working, then okay, let's try something else and just change it up. Be willing to try something else. Monitor behaviors and use positive reinforcement. If there's two kids not paying attention, then maybe, Monica, thank you so much for paying attention. Beth, didn't she do a great job? Draw attention to the kid that is doing the behavior you want instead of just constantly saying, Derek and Judy, stop talking to each other, stop interrupting. All right, I minimize the chalk talk. So ironic that I've been talking for so long. Demonstrate, so we want to demonstrate. So oftentimes it'll be like, okay, now walk this figure eight course. Our kids need you to walk the figure eight course first, demonstrate what you want them to do, and then ask them to do it. And then use lots of props and pictures and graphics. One of the things I didn't put on our thing because I didn't want to bring the fan down, but in typical traditional, we look for bubbles. How do you find the wind? Bubbles and trees and that type of thing. We really want to encourage our kids to feel the wind. Go find the wind, feel it on your face, especially kids on the spectrum who are so sensitive to touch and things. You know, like we don't deal with visually impaired kids, but there is blind sailing. There is like blind match racing. So we've got two blind guys coming at each other in match racing. And they can really sense where the wind's coming from. They know the wind shift, but you know, we're all looking at the telltales trying to figure out from the sails where the wind shift's coming from. They've got it. So we want our kids that are sensitive to that interaction to embrace, make that the value that makes them a great sailor. Okay, so are they coming?
They should, yes.
And so this is my life. Okay. So we're going to do a demo. Oh, there we go. The two demos we're going to do, I'll kind of lay out. Can you go lay out the thing so at least it's ready? No, not yet, because I'm just going to explain what they are, and then I'll come over and pause. So the two manipulatives we're going to see, one is capsize recovery, so I kind of explained that already. We're going to use a model boat. The kids have already had the chalk talk on capsize recovery, and so this is sort of the next step. And then we're going to utilize points of sail. And so the points of sail one, we have a poster that we're going to use. And on one side of the poster, it has the different sailboats and their orientation to where the wind's coming from. And the sail is drawn on it. So that would be a good one to use. What point of sail is this? This is close haul. What point, being reached. But then we turn the poster over to the side that doesn't have the sails on it. So they're going to use the model boat, and they're going to have to identify which point of sail the model boat goes on for, which one is a beam reach or a broad reach. And then they're going to have to adjust the sail to where the sail should be on that point of sail. So and for each of these wouldn't be something we do at the same time. It would be two separate sessions. One would be the capsize recovery one, and one would be the points of sail one. So we've got two instructors and two kids. The instructors are going to be running it, and we're just going to kind of hover over the sides and watch. So if you guys will come up out, and we're going to go out into the hall. We've got wind sticks, so we can move these around if we have to. And why do I have a rubber duck? Why do I have a rubber duck? Because to make it fun, our windward mark, one of our buoys that the kids go around, is a giant swan. And another one is a llama, and another one is a pizza. Because to say go to the red one and then the yellow one and then the blue one, or go around the marks clockwise is really hard. But to say go to the swan and then to the pizza.
So these are the real marks out in the water. Oh,
yeah,
my
you'll
goodness,
see
okay.
them. You'll see them when we go down for the happy hour. So then I had these little rubber ducks. So the rubber duck is the swan here, and so they're connecting with what they're doing here to what they're doing out in the water. So that's what these are about. And then the beauty of this is you can just, and this is something soon. I'm going to have Brendan Pizza Company, and we're going to get a grant, and we're going to give these to sailing school. So you got your pizza box, and it's in there, and you open it up, and all the stuff you need is right there. And these are our little boats. We talked about color coding everything, so that's important. And then this just has a little sail on it.
Perfect. That is perfect.
Yeah. So this is our pizza box thing, and that we love.
What do we do?
You have the head to make sure you're okay.
Can you do that for me? Alright, then what do you do? Can you show me with the little guys?
One person goes around.
And we've got a, our word right here.
The other person holds on here, and this person yells out ready, and then this person says ready, and this person would go and keep going till the boat's back up.
And what's this person doing? What are they doing?
This person is going with it while holding on and is flipping back into the boat.
What are they holding on to?
They're holding on to the
What they're called?
no,
Starts with an H?
the hitch track.
Hiking stripes. Very close.
And then once that happens, this person would be in the boat. This person would be in the boat, and this person would go to the back.
Do they ever let go of the boat?
Once they get up back up,
So
and
this
the
person
boat's
who's in-
perfectly flipped.
So this person who's in the water, do they ever let go of the boat?
No.
Yeah, so they're gonna hold on to the boat.
Yeah, they go around to the back. This person will come to the back, grab by their life vest, and pull them back up, and they will get back into position.
Alright, nice job.
Nice.
Alright, Jackson, can you show me the same thing?
Yeah.
You're sailing along and your boat flips.
Yep. Two people they both pat their head to signal that they're okay. One person goes around, they yell out ready,
Say ready.
and then this person holds on to the hiking straps, while this person will hoist it up via the center board, while this person holds on. Once that's done, the person who is hiking on the center board will come to the back, while the person on board will help them back up, and they'll get back to their positions.
Alright, nice job.
If you can find the right one where it's pointing, then we're going to decide where the sail needs to be, depending on how far away from the wind you are. So if this is the wind direction up here, okay? And I'm going to have Hannah start by putting the boat on a beam reach, if possible. If the wind is here. Yep. And do you remember if your sail is like all the way out, all the way in, halfway out? Yep. Perfect. Okay. And then if you were to go down onto a run, for example. Sweet. And sail should be, yeah. We've got a little main sheet here you can use. There you go. All right. Now, how about Bartley? I'll start you in irons because you always end up there anyway. Kidding. And then can you go down to a close haul? I think you got it. That's beam reach. Oh. That's it. So the sail should be right, pretty much all the way in there towards the corner. Okay, and then if you went down to a broad reach. Right. And your sail should be there. Excellent.
All right. So, and I asked Bartley to do something wrong initially, so you could show the instructor getting correct.
No way.
So, yeah. All right. So, and I just want to point out. So, we could just, we could just do this. Where are you and stuff, and we could go, okay, put your hand.
Start here.
But these came about from when we did our Brendan training virtually. But this even has the rope, the main sheet. So when they went from close haul to they had to take this line, and so now they're in their head going, okay, I got to ease the line out. There's more line. So it's just little things like that that are going to help when they get out on the boat. They're going to know that the sail goes in and out when I ease that line out. So, all right, thank you very much. Am I acting